What if the person you trusted most was secretly trying to destroy your life? Imagine discovering that your loving spouse has been poisoning you for months, slowly eroding your health and career. This isn't fiction, it's one of the most shocking Reddit relationship stories you'll ever hear. How far will someone go for success? Stick around to find out how a simple act of trust turned into a life or death battle. Subscribe now, like, and comment your thoughts on this jaw-dropping story. Anna sat in her well-lit, pristine office, the hum of the city just outside her window. It was the kind of quiet that only a successful architect could truly appreciate, focused, calm, and uninterrupted. But today, it was different. Her mind, usually sharp and clear, felt foggy. She reached for her morning energy shake, the one Tom, her loving husband, prepared every morning with care. It had become a comforting routine, the same ritual she looked forward to as the perfect start to her busy day. But something was wrong. The taste of the shake today was off. For weeks now, Anna had noticed a lingering, subtle taste, something metallic, almost sickly sweet, but she had convinced herself it was nothing. Maybe it was stress, or the overwhelming pressure of her demanding job. But as she finished her shake, she felt the all-too-familiar dizziness creeping in, the fatigue settling like a weight in her chest. Her thoughts started to spiral. The late nights at work, the constant pressure from her clients, the meetings that bled into evenings, all of it was starting to take its toll. But the symptoms weren't just exhaustion. The memory lapses had become too frequent, the constant vertigo impossible to ignore. She found herself having to stop mid-sentence at work, searching desperately for the right words. It was a terrifying feeling, like her own body was betraying her. Still, she brushed it off, attributing it to burnout. Yet a nagging voice inside her refused to be silenced. Something wasn't right. Not with her health, not with her life. One morning, after a particularly troubling episode of disorientation, Anna found herself staring at Tom while he made another shake for her. The usual warmth in his smile was still there, but something was off about his pallor. His skin appeared unnaturally pale, like he hadn't slept properly in days. As he handed her the shake, their eyes briefly met, but it felt distant, like she was staring at a stranger. "Are you okay?" Anna asked, her voice laced with concern. It wasn't like him to look this way. Tom gave a strained smile. "I'm fine, just a little tired. Long week." Something in his response didn't sit right with her. The concern she felt was swallowed by an uneasy suspicion that seemed to materialize out of thin air. She took a long look at the glass he'd handed her. This morning, the shake seemed different. Was it darker than usual? Was it thicker? A chill ran down her spine, but she ignored it, telling herself it was just stressed odd. As the day wore on, her fatigue worsened. The dizziness returned, stronger than before, along with a headache that felt like it would split her skull open. Something was terribly wrong. By the time she got home that night, her mind was racing, unable to slow down. The thought gnawed at her. Could he be poisoning me? A voice inside her screamed that it was impossible. Tom, her loving husband, would never do that. He had always been supportive. He always made her these shakes. How could it be anything but kindness? But deep down, Anna knew. She could feel it. There was something sinister beneath the surface, something she hadn't seen before. It was like a quiet storm waiting to unleash. The next morning, Anna's suspicions couldn't be contained. She needed answers. Desperation pushed her to act. To test her theory, as Tom made another shake for her, she made a bold decision. Without his knowledge, she quietly swapped their glasses, filling his with the shake meant for her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she watched him drink it. Her hands shook slightly, but she tried to stay calm, telling herself it was just a test. A part of her hope prayed that she was wrong. Within minutes, Tom's color drained. His eyes widened, his face contorted in pain, and he collapsed to the floor, his body convulsing violently. Anna screamed, rushing to his side, but her mind was frozen in shock. What had she done? What had he done to her? Within hours, Tom was rushed to the hospital. Doctors couldn't pinpoint the cause, but his condition seemed to worsen as the minutes ticked by. It was the same set of symptoms Anna had been experiencing: fatigue, confusion, memory loss. It was all too familiar. Anna's suspicions solidified. into a terrifying truth. As she sat in the sterile hospital waiting room, a whirlwind of thoughts consumed her. How had Tom poisoned her? Was he trying to kill her? But why? And how had he managed to keep it hidden for so long? After Tom was stabilized and sent home, Anna's fear morphed into determination. She couldn't sit back any longer. Her world had been turned upside down, and she was desperate to uncover the truth. She began her investigation. Anna knew Tom's habits better than anyone, and as she searched through their home, something caught her eye: a hidden cabinet in his office. Inside were jars of unmarked powders, labeled only with cryptic symbols and vague instructions. One jar in particular caught her attention: energy-boosting blend. Anna froze, her blood running cold as she read the small printer warning about side effects that matched her symptoms perfectly: dizziness, confusion, memory problems. The reality hit her like a ton of bricks. Tom had been poisoning her all along, gradually, intentionally. It was the only explanation that made sense. She was not losing her mind, she was being systematically destroyed. Every corner of their home became a clue, from hidden bottles of unmarked powders to cryptic messages in Tom's old work tablet. The pieces of the puzzle began to come together. She found detailed, handwritten notes that outlined the slow dosage increase of the poison, noting that there should be no external symptoms until it was too late. Anna felt a surge of anger, but also clarity. The truth was out there, and she was going to find it. Tom had underestimated her. She was going to fight back, not just for her own life, but for everything she had worked so hard to build. The moment of confrontation was near. Anna wasn't going to let Tom get away with this, but she knew it wasn't going to be easy. Her every step was a risk, but she had no other choice now. The man she had loved was no longer the person standing before her. He was a predator, and Anna was going to expose him for what he truly was. With a cold, calculated focus, Anna began to gather the evidence she needed to bring him down. She was no longer just a wife in a marriage. She was a woman fighting for her life, and she would not let anyone take that away from her. The perspective of Laura, the silent witness. Lara sat across from Anna in their favorite cafe, a quiet space nestled between the busy streets. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup, but her mind was miles away. She had always admired Anna, her strength, her tenacity, her brilliant mind, but the woman sitting before her today was different. There was a weight in her eyes, a quiet desperation, that Laura couldn't ignore. Anna had always been a pillar of strength, a woman who had it all together: a thriving career, a supportive husband, and a life that seemed to unfold effortlessly. Laura had never questioned the facade, never seen the cracks in the carefully constructed image Anna had worked so hard to build. But today, as she watched her best friend shift uneasily in her seat, something was undeniably wrong. Anna, you look different. What's going on? Laura's voice was gentle, yet there was an undercurrent of concern. They had been friends for years, but Anna had always been the one to shoulder the burdens alone. Laura had often wished she could help, but Anna had always brushed off any signs of vulnerability. Anna hesitated, her lips parting as if she was about to say something, but then closing again. Her hands, once steady, now shook slightly as she placed her cup down on the table. "I think Tom's poisoning me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think he's been poisoning me for months." The words hung in the air, sharp and chilling. Laura's heart skipped a beat as she stared at her friend. At first, she thought she must have misunderstood, but the sincerity in Anna's eyes told her otherwise. "Poisoning you?" "Anna, are you sure? What makes you think that?" Laura asked, her voice rising slightly, caught between disbelief and worrying. Anna's eyes welled with tears. "I don't know how to explain it, Laura, but the shakes. The shakes he makes for me every day. I feel worse every time I drink them. At first, I thought it was stress. But then something happened." Tom collapsed. "He drank one of the shakes meant for me, and he almost died. I think he did it on purpose, Laura, and now I can't ignore it anymore." Laura leaned back in her chair, stunned by the gravity of Anna's words. She could feel the weight of Anna's distress pulling her in, but the logical part of her mind resisted the idea that Tom, someone she had always seen as kind, supportive, and attentive, could be capable of something so sinister. "Why would he do that?" Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What would he gain from poisoning you? Anna's face contorted with pain. I don't know. But I'm starting to piece it together. There's this ... cabinet. I found it in his office. Inside, there were jars of unmarked powders, one of which said it was an energy-boosting blend, and it had warnings that matched all my symptoms. I feel like I'm losing my mind. But ... I know what I'm saying, Laura. He's doing this to me on purpose. Laura could see the depth of Anna's pain and the confusion that clouded her judgment. She wanted to say something, anything, to reassure her, but all she could do was listen. She had never seen Anna so vulnerable, so broken. I don't know what to do, Anna continued, her voice shaking. I've been watching him. I stopped drinking the shakes, but I need help, Laura. I need someone who can analyze the substance, someone who can prove what I suspect. I need to know the truth. Laura's heart sank as she realized the magnitude of the situation. Tom's actions were no longer just a betrayal. They were a calculated, malicious attempt to destroy the woman Anna had worked so hard to become. The realization settled like a heavy stone in her stomach, and yet she knew what she had to do. I'll help you, Laura said, her voice firm. I'll contact someone I know who can analyze those substances. He's a retired pharmacist, and he specializes in this kind of thing. We'll get to the bottom of it. Anna's face softened, a mixture of relief and disbelief crossing her features. You'll help me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Of course, Laura replied, reaching across the table to take her hand. We're in this together. The next few days were a blur. Anna gave Laura the substances she had collected, samples of the shakes, the powders from the hidden cabinet, and any other evidence she had found. Laura, though terrified for her friend, remained focused. She contacted her retired pharmacist friend, who had the expertise to analyze the substances and verify Anna's worst fears. As Laura waited for the results, she couldn't shake the nagging thought, why didn't I see the signs earlier? She had always known Tom to be charming, kind, the perfect husband, and yet now she was faced with the reality that he was capable of unimaginable cruelty. The betrayal felt like a cold slap in the face, not just for Anna, but for Laura as well. She had been friends with Tom for years, yet she had never suspected the darkness that lurked beneath his facade. The analysis from the pharmacist confirmed what Anna feared. The powder, when mixed with the shake, targeted the nervous system, causing confusion, memory loss, and fatigue. It was a slow-acting poison, designed to incapacitate Anna gradually without raising suspicion. Laura's anger simmered as she listened to the results. The thought of Tom, someone she had known and trusted, actively destroying Anna's life, made her blood boil. But the anger quickly shifted to determination. They would expose him. Together, they would make sure he paid for what he had done. The night before Anna planned to confront Tom, Laura could see the weight of the world on her friend's shoulders. Are you sure you're ready for this? Laura asked gently. Anna nodded, her face hardening with resolve. I have to be. This ends tomorrow. I'm not going to let him get away with it. Laura could see the change in Anna. She was no longer the woman who had been unknowingly poisoned, no longer the trusting wife. She was now a force to be reckoned with, a woman who would stop at nothing to reclaim her life, to uncover the truth, and to make sure that Tom would never hurt her again. The next day, Anna walked into the police station with a stack of evidence samples, messages, emails, and the analysis from the pharmacist. Laura stood by her side, a silent but unwavering ally. As Anna presented everything she had uncovered, the truth hit harder than she expected. The calm demeanor she had perfected over the years, the facade of a perfect marriage, shattered with each piece of evidence she laid before the authorities. When Tom was arrested, he looked at her, his face twisted with disbelief and anger. You can't do this, he spat, his voice shaking. I did it because I love you. You had everything, and Hannah didn't let him finish. You don't love me, Tom. You only love the idea of my success. You wanted to take it for yourself. With a final, resolute glance, Anna walked away. The battle was over, and she had won. The climax and the ultimate challenge. The air in the police station felt thick with tension. Anna stood in the sterile, cold room, the walls closing in around her. Her hands, which had once been steady and strong, were now trembling. She could hear the pounding of her heart in her ears, drowning out all other sounds. The pile of evidence messages, emails, samples of the poison sat before her on the table like the weight of her entire future. It was real, it was undeniable. Yet, despite all the proof she had gathered, a seed of doubt still lingered deep within her. Could she really go through with this? Could she stand in front of Tom and expose him for what he had done, the man she had loved for so long? Her partner, her confidant, was a monster. A wave of nausea threatened to rise in her throat as she thought about the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. Anna could feel herself unraveling at the seams. Part of her wanted to run, to escape this nightmare and find solace in the past they had shared, even though it had all been a lie. The other part of her, the part that had been systematically destroyed by Tom's poisoning, wanted justice. She had to stand up for herself. She couldn't be the victim anymore. The choice was clear. But the internal struggle was unbearable. The officer at the desk was speaking to her. But Anna's mind was somewhere else. Somewhere between the devastation and the drive for justice. "Miss Taylor, we're ready to move forward," he said gently, as if reading her mind. "You've given us everything we need. We can't let him get away with this." His words echoed in her mind, pushing her toward the decision she had been avoiding. "This is your chance, Anna. This is your moment to take back control." She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle heavily on her shoulders. She wasn't just fighting for herself, now she was fighting for every person who had ever been silenced, for every woman who had been pushed aside to make room for someone else's ambition. She was fighting to make sure Tom never got the chance to hurt anyone again. "Do it," Anna whispered, her voice barely audible. "Let's end this." Tom sat in the interrogation room, the man who had once held her heart, now a mere shell of his former self. He looked disoriented, confused, and angry, but there was something else in his eyes, something she had never seen before: fear. The fear of being caught, of losing everything. Anna walked in, her heart heavy, but her resolve ironclad. She had come this far. She had faced her darkest fears, and now, finally, she was ready to face him. Tom looked up, his face contorted in a twisted smile. "You think you've won, don't you?" He sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you can just ruin my life because you're too weak to understand why I did it? You took everything from me, everything." Anna's chest tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "No, Tom, you took everything from me. You destroyed me. You wanted to tear me down because you couldn't handle my success. You couldn't stand that I was stronger than you." His eyes flared with rage. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to see you suffer?" He stood up, knocking his chair over in the process, his anger boiling over. "I did it for us, for our future. You were going to ruin it all by being more successful than me. I had to stop you." Anna's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. The pain of his betrayal cut deep, but she wasn't going to let it control her anymore. "I didn't ruin anything. You did. And now, you'll pay for what you did to me." The finality in her words hit Tom like a punch to the gut. For the first time, he looked uncertain, broken. "You wanted to take my life away," Anna continued, her voice gaining strength. "But you didn't realize that I'm not going to let you." The officer in the room, who had been standing quietly in the corner, finally spoke up, his voice firm. "Tom, you're under arrest for attempted murder. You and your accomplice, James Hunter, will be held accountable for your actions. Your plans to destroy Anna's career and health have been exposed." As the officers moved toward Tom to place him in handcuffs, Anna felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. The weight that had been on her shoulders for so long finally began to lift. She had made the hardest decision of her life, and in doing so, she had found her strength. She had taken back her life. Tom, broken and defeated, was led away. Anna stood there, silently watching, her heart heavy, but filled with a quiet triumph. She didn't feel like a victim anymore. She felt like a survivor. A warrior who had fought against the darkness and emerged victorious. As the officers escorted Tom out of the room, Anna took a long, steadying breath. This chapter of her life was over. And now, it was time to rebuild. It wasn't going to be easy. But Anna knew one thing for certain: she was finally free. The night before everything changed. Anna sat in her apartment, staring out the window at the city below. It had been a week since her final confrontation with Tom, a week of sleepless nights, restless thoughts, and constant fear. The evidence was clear: Tom's poisoning, his betrayal, but Anna still felt like a fragile thread holding on by a mere whisper of hope. Tomorrow was the day she would present everything to the authorities. She would expose him, and with that, her life would never be the same again. The familiar anxiety that always accompanied monumental decisions crept into her chest. She wasn't sure if it was fear of the unknown or the crushing reality that the man she had loved for so long was capable of such unimaginable cruelty. She had spent so much time building her life, her career, her marriage, and now it was all in pieces. A part of her still wanted to believe it was a mistake, that Tom would confess, beg for forgiveness, and apologize for his actions. But deep down, Anna knew there could be no reconciliation. Not after what he had done. Yet, even as her mind screamed for justice, her heart ached with loss. How had it come to this? The life she had once cherished now felt like an illusion, a facade of love, trust, and companionship, all shattered by a single act of betrayal. But then, the choice became clear. She had already made the hardest decision of her life by confronting the truth, by putting the pieces together and facing Tom head-on. She couldn't back down now. The pain, the fear, it would all fade, eventually. But if she allowed him to get away with it, the damage would last forever. She wasn't going to let him win, not now. Not ever. The next morning was crisp, the sun rising behind the clouds like the first breath of a new beginning. Anna stood in front of the police station, feeling a strange calm wash over her. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the door. Today, everything would change. As she stepped inside, the weight of what she was about to do settled heavily on her shoulders. She had already given the police the evidence: Tom's poisoning plan, the incriminating emails, the substances he had been using, and the confession from Laura's contact, the retired pharmacist. Everything was set in motion. All she had to do now was face Tom in the most terrifying moment of her life. Tom was already in the interrogation room, sitting with his hands cuffed to the table, his back straight as though nothing had happened. He looked at Anna as she entered. His eyes cold and empty, the man she had once loved now reduced to nothing more than a liar and a criminal. "Anna," he said, his voice tight but controlled. "You have to understand. I did it for us, for our future." Anna's heart twisted. In her chest, for us, the words felt like daggers. She could feel her emotions rising, but she fought to remain calm. She had come too far to let him manipulate her again. "I trusted you," she said, her voice shaking with the weight of her pain. "I gave you everything, my love, my trust. And you poisoned me. You made me believe you cared when all along, you were planning to destroy me." Tom's face faltered for just a second, but he quickly recovered. His eyes narrowed. "You were too successful, Anna. I was losing everything. I had to do something. I couldn't let you overshadow me." The words hit Anna like a slap to the face. The depth of his jealousy, his insecurities, the need to break her down in order to build himself up, it was all there, laid bare. "I couldn't let you overshadow me." The man she had built a life with saw her as a threat. A threat to his fragile ego. "Tom," Anna said, her voice barely a whisper, but it was filled with strength. "You were never a victim. You did this because of your own envy. You tried to take away everything I've worked for, everything I've built, but you failed. And now, you'll face the consequences." His eyes flickered with something guilt, maybe, or fear, but it was too late. The time for apologies was long gone. As the officers moved in to arrest him, Tom broke down, the facade of control crumbling away. He collapsed onto the table, his face crumpling with regret. "I just wanted to be enough for you," he muttered through tears. "I was tired of living in your shadow." Anna stood in silence, watching him fall apart. The anger, the betrayal, the pain, all of it bubbled up inside her, but she didn't give in to it. The justice she had fought for was now within reach. She had fought, not just for her career, but for her dignity, her life. The trial was a blur. The evidence was undeniable, and Tom's emotional breakdown in court only cemented the truth. James Hunter, Tom's accomplice, had been a hidden thread all along. and his involvement in the plot made the betrayal even more devastating. As the verdict was read, Anna felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Justice had been served. Tom and James were sentenced. But as Anna left the courtroom, a sense of calm settled over her. The emotional weight of the past few months finally began to lift. She had taken back her life. She wasn't the victim anymore. She was a survivor. The sun was setting as Anna walked out into the cool evening air, her heart no longer heavy with the burden of betrayal. For the first time in months, she felt free. She had made her choice, and in doing so, she had reclaimed her future. The conclusion and the lesson courtroom door slammed shut behind Anna as she exited, her heart pounding with a strange mixture of exhaustion and triumph. The trial had been a whirlwind of emotions, but now, as she stood outside in the cool evening air, the weight of it all began to sink in. Tom and James were behind bars, their betrayal exposed for the world to see. Justice had been served, but it wasn't just about the verdict. It was about reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her future. As she walked down the courthouse steps, Anna realized how far she had come. Just a few months ago, she had been trapped in a web of lies, her health and career crumbling under the weight of Tom's deceit. She had been too trusting, too willing to believe that the man she loved could never hurt her. But now, standing tall, she understood the value of resilience. She had fought back, faced her fears, and uncovered the truth. The past was no longer a source of pain. It had become a stepping stone to her freedom. Anna knew that she was not defined by the betrayal she had suffered, but by the strength she had found within herself. She had faced the darkest chapter of her life, and now she was ready to move forward. The road to healing. As the weeks passed, Anna began to rebuild her life, piece by piece. She returned to work with a renewed sense of purpose, accepting a lead role on an international project that she had once been too afraid to pursue. She found comfort in the small things: the laughter of her friends, the warmth of a good cup of coffee, the sense of pride that came from knowing she had survived something unimaginable. She had learned, through her own suffering, that healing was not a linear process. It was messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful. But every step forward was a victory. Anna had to relearn how to trust herself, how to believe in her own worth, and most importantly, how to forgive herself for allowing Tom to manipulate her for so long. The journey of rebuilding wasn't easy, but it was hers. And with every challenge, she grew stronger. She knew that she would never allow herself to be in a position where she was vulnerable to such betrayal again. But more than that, she had learned the value of self-preservation, of knowing when to walk away from toxic relationships and take back control of her own life. The power of self-worth and strength. Most profound lesson Anna had learned through this ordeal was that true strength didn't come from perfection or from never faltering. It came from embracing one's flaws, accepting the scars left by past wounds, and choosing to keep going despite the pain. It came from knowing your worth, even when others tried to tear it down. Tom's actions had been cruel, but they had not destroyed her. They had propelled her into a new chapter, one where she had the power to shape her own future. She had learned that no one, not even someone she loved, had the right to dim her light or take away her dreams. A message of hope. Anna's story was a testament to the power of resilience, but also to the importance of self-love and self-respect. She had been betrayed by someone she trusted completely, but instead of allowing herself to be broken, she chose to fight for herself. She chose to fight for her career, her health, and her happiness. The most powerful part of Anna's journey wasn't the revenge or the justice, it was the reclamation of her own agency. The choice to take back her life, no matter how difficult it was the true victory. The call to action. As Anna looked out at the horizon, a sense of peace settled over her. She had emerged from the darkness and found her light again. And now, she was ready to help others do the same. Her story was one of countless other stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and overcoming the odds. If you've ever been in a situation where someone tried to take away your power, your dreams, your voice, Anna's journey is proof that you can rise above it. It's proof that you can fight back, reclaim your worth, and start fresh, no matter how broken you may feel. Now, it's your turn. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. If you've ever been through something similar, tell us how you've overcome it. Your journey matters, And your strength is something to be celebrated. If Anna's story inspired you, take a moment to subscribe, like, and comment below. Let's keep the conversation going and continue supporting one another in our journeys towards self-healing and empowerment. Remember, no one can take away your power unless you let them. Keep fighting, keep growing, and never forget how strong you are.